All right, ladies and gentlemen, well, we have a very interesting video here coming to us from Twitter from Colin Moriarty. Now, this particular video is him essentially trying to make the claim that the Sweet Baby Inc. extortion story is for all intents and purposes not true. And the reason why it's not true is simply because the money that was being asked for the extortion was just way too high for anyone to make it believable. Now, if you guys remember when I did my video, I specifically said that I could not believe that they were asking for $7 million. I just felt like that was an exorbitant amount of money for a consultancy firm. However, that doesn't mean that the extortion is not necessarily happening. Now, as we get into this video, you guys are going to realize that, yes, there are multiple things that can be true. Can the $7 million be something that's not necessarily true? Could it be less? Absolutely. But does that mean the extortion is not happening? Does that mean that the weird shit with IGN and Black Myth Wukong is not happening? Of course not. And he does relatively go into it in this video. So let's get into the video, guys. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. So it's post reads, no, Sweet Baby Inc. didn't extort Game Science for $7 million to work on Black Myth Wukong. How do I know? Because even $200 million games don't spend that on consultants. It's an absurd claim. I knew the story was fake the second I saw it. Stop believing everything you read. Now, you can make this claim. Like I said, two things can be true at once. You can make this claim that you believe that the $7 million was too high, and thus that part of the story is not correct. But then you don't get the option to say the story is fake simply because the money about the extortion is too high. They could be multiple different reasons why this number is as high as it is, or perhaps maybe there was a mistranslation and maybe they were talking about 7 million in yen. Who really knows? But at the end of the day, this does not necessarily mean that the story is not true. Just because you personally feel that the $7 million is too high for a consultancy group to charge doesn't mean that the story is fake. And you also got to keep in mind too, Sweet Baby Inc. is growing its portfolio. It is trying to get its name out there to multiple different studios, and the more studios that hire them, the more money they can charge because they will be considered a more valuable asset. So let's actually get into this video so you guys can see what's going down, and we'll react to it. Let's go.
I wanted to talk about this specifically for one reason, and it's this $7 million consultancy fee thing. There is no way that that's true. I don't need to know any more about the story. There is simply...
See, that's my biggest problem right there. So you are the kind of person, it seems anyway, where you hear information and in your mind, if you deem it to be just completely not true, you immediately throw away everything else regarding the story. You're not even willing, seemingly anyway, to listen to it. You say that you throw the entire story away, that the entire story is now, you don't need to know anything about the entire story. Why not? Don't you want to get the full context of the story that's being presented? When you hear something immediately, that's what leftists do. I don't know if you're a leftist. I don't know who you are, but what I'm saying is that's what hardcore leftists do. They hear something that they don't like and they immediately toss everything else to the side because they live in a world of black and white, right? Like if you don't agree with everything they say, then that automatically means you're alt-right Nazi. That's just how it works. So I don't like when people do that. I don't like when people say, you know, oh, I heard this, so I can just toss the entire story away. I don't like that.
No way that a consultancy company like Sweet Baby Inc. went to Game Science in China and said, we want $7 million for a DEI consultancy.
Well, how do you know that? That's the thing. Like, so now it's for you to prove. How do you know that? How do you know they didn't charge that? Because nobody knows the interaction between Game Science and Sweet Baby Inc. And there is like the word extortion, you got to understand the word extortion and what it means, right? So it means you have leverage against an entity, someone or an entity that you can utilize to then ask for more money than you normally would. So even if they were normally asked for, let's say, 1 million, 2 million, whatever you deem as necessary in your mind, you got to understand that if this is truly an extortion attempt, if this is truly something to, hey, we're going to ruin your reputation unless you pay us this, that, or whatever, you got to imagine that they probably would feel like they have enough leverage to want to ask for more money than they normally would for their quote unquote services. But anyway, let's continue.
That is a substantial amount of money for any game.
It absolutely is.
And especially a game that is being self-published by a first-time developer, basically. I know they made like one smaller game years ago. In a country that isn't that expensive to make games in. That could very well be like a quarter of their budget. There's just no way it's true.
But how do you know that? See, that's the thing. Like, you can't say there's no way it is true and then not provide evidence about that. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously, there is history, right? If you can provide evidence of how much Sweet Baby Inc. was paid for certain, I guess you could say certain services that they offered to some other studios, then we can have a little bit of corroboration. We can see, okay, they got paid this in the past. What are the chances that they probably upped their costs, or what are the chances that they charged this at a normal rate for this particular game for this particular company, right? Like, we need some corroboration. You can't just say there's no way that's not true and then just run with it, right? Like, there is a rumor out there. Right? There's a rumor out there about extortion. We have evidence that IGN and other journalists have specifically attacked this game developer with false information that you admit later on in this video. So then, yeah, if there is a rumor about extortion and you're saying there's no way that's true, then prove it's not true. Otherwise, it's just going to remain a rumor. And we've said that. Like, when we reported on this, we said it's a rumor. We said there's no way we know if it's true. But given the situation, and given that Sweet Baby Inc. CEO Kim Belair has openly admitted that if they don't get what they want, then they have to terrify their marketing departments of the companies they're trying to get what they want from in order to continue to get hired and push their services. So that's essentially admitting to extortion in one way or another.
I don't need to know any more about it than that. This is, and I wanted to bring this up because this is what bothers me. And I hope this is instructive. It's nothing against Mr. Winter or anyone else that believes this stuff. It's just, you got to be accurate and focused if you want to make change or bring attention to a cause and be productive. There's no doubt that it seems like IGN told the audience to cheer for Phil Spencer's thing. That seems to be well reported, right? And so that's true. And there's no doubt that there's the accusation of some sort of mistranslation or something going on with the original piece that IGN did about game science, in which they leveraged some pretty serious accusations against them of sexism, I think, and stuff like that.
So you admit that they have openly lied about certain information, and that it's not too shocking if one were to think that, hey, this seems like a corroborated, a corroborated bit of information and a collaboration between multiple different journalists to try to bring down a particular studio because they didn't want to pay whatever the fee may be. If it's 1 million, 2 million, 7 million, doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that it's not happening.
That misogyny. Those things could both be true, but it's undermined when such a deeply unserious accusation is made, which cannot possibly be real. Like $7 million that's not like just an amount of money that's bandied around by a studio like Game Science. I don't understand what people think is like going on out there. Sony or Nintendo and Microsoft would balk completely at spending half that much money on a consultancy for a game. That's like a $200 million game.
Can you provide evidence? I would really love to see. I'm not being facetious or anything. Can you provide evidence of how much Sweet Baby Inc. was paid for their services when they worked with AAA studios like what you just mentioned? I think it would be very helpful to your argument of there's no way that could be real if you were to provide that.
Jaffe and I talked about this a little bit on the show, and I agree. We agree completely. Like that just can't be true. Like, you don't even need to know anymore. And I wanted to say,
you do. See, that's what I don't like. I don't like when people say you don't need to know more just because you heard something you didn't like. That is not a good mindset to have.
I say that because I want people to get into the mode of what is called steel manning. So if you straw man an argument, right?
Right.
You should instead steel man it, meaning that if you want to have a good argument against something, come up with the most rational, best possible argument in the contrary of what you feel or believe.
So I don't know if he realizes this, but he's literally straw manning. Like, you said, oh, I heard that the $7 million cost for Sweet Baby Inc. services. Yeah, I don't believe that. Thus, everything else, I don't need to know. That's a fucking straw man argument. Like, you literally can, seek more information, try to get some, prove something. Like, you're not steel manning. This is not a steel man argument. None of this is a steel man argument. You heard something you didn't like, and you tossed everything else aside. You didn't even want to bother to hear the rest. That is not a good look. When you're trying to talk about having good arguments and being able to have, some sort of discussion or discourse on this, You can't do that while negating everything else because you heard that the number was too high for your own personal beliefs about what they should get paid or what they should not get paid. So ultimately, this video doesn't really prove anything. All it is just one man's opinion, which is fine. He's allowed to have his opinion. Nothing wrong with that. But I think that if you're going to lecture people on arguments, perhaps that you should do a little bit better yourself and provide evidence. You know, like I think it would have helped in this video that was clipped on Twitter because I didn't see the full video. This is from your own personal account, but I think it would have helped you in your case if you would provide evidence of how much Sweet Baby Inc. was paid for previous services by AAA developers. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.